بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد. Inshallah, we begin from hadith number 139. Hadith number 139. حدثنا موسى قال حدثنا حمزة بن نجيه أبو عمارة قال سمعت الحسن يقول لقد عهدت المسلمين وإن الرجل منهم لا يصبح فيقول يا أهليا يا أهليا يتيمكم يتيمكم. This is the chapter about be like a merciful father to an orphan. And this is the chapter when we're talking about taking care of the orphans and those children that don't have someone to look after them. In general, what we need to realize is that when Rasulullah ﷺ in the hadith speak about yatim, that we should not restrict it to only those children that don't have a father to look after them. But rather, anyone in society who is in this situation where they have no one else to turn to, we need to look at them the same way that we look at the yatim child, the orphan child. So Hassan Basri, in this hadith, Hassan Basri, he narrates something very interesting. And what he's narrating in this is something he observed in his time. He says, لَقَدْ عَهِدْتُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. He says, I remember a day. You know how when you're older, you say, I remember the days when. So Hassan Basri right now is saying, I remember a time when. وَإِنَّ الرَّجُلْ مِنْهُمْ. That a man would wake up in the morning, لَا يُصْبِحُ فَيَقُولُ يَا أَهْلِيَا يَا أَهْلِيَا. He'd say, O family, O family. يَتِيمَكُمْ يَتِيمَكُمْ. Look after the yatim, look after the orphans. Go find some orphans to look after. Go look after the orphans. Ya ahliya, ya ahliya, miskinakum, miskinakum. Family, family. Look for the poor people, look for the destitute people. Ya ahliya, ya ahliya. O family, O family. Jarakum, jarakum. Look after your neighbor, look after your neighbor. What's interesting here, look at what Hassan Basri he says. He says, وَإِنَّ الرَّجُلَ مِنْهُمْ. That a man would wake up. الرَّجُلْ مِنْهُمْ. So we see right here what the men were like at that time. We see a quality that the men had of their time. That they were waking up in the morning and the first thing they were telling their family was, hey, let's look after the orphans. Let's look after the orphans. Nowadays, as men of families, are we saying the first thing in the morning, are we saying to our families, let's look after the poor people, let's look after the poor people? So this was a quality in the rajul. This was a quality of manlyhood at that time. A concern for the poor and the destitute. That's a very important point to notice. So what is the person waking up in the morning saying? Look after the yatim, the orphan. Go find the orphan. Let's look after them. Look after a poor person. Let's look after a poor person. Jarakum, your neighbor. A man would wake up in the morning saying to his family, look after our neighbors. Look after our neighbors. It's very interesting. وَأُسْرِعَ بِخِيَارِكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ تَرْذُلُونَ. Look what he says. He says, but you know what happened? The best of you were taken away. The best of you passed away. The best of you left the world. Died, passed away. وَأَنْتُمْ, and you, كُلَّ يَوْمٍ تَرْذُلُونَ. Every day you're going down. You know what's interesting here? That Hassan Basri is pointing out that mankind in general were not getting better as time would go on, but they were getting worse as time goes on. Where evolution today would tell us that no, every generation we're becoming a better species. We're becoming better. and better. Society by natural selection is ridding itself from those who don't deserve to live on. This is the complete opposite from what Hassan Basri is saying, that guys, every day you're getting worse and worse. You're not doing what we used to do. You're not acting the way we used to act. This is a big difference between the Islamic perspective of who we are and how generations pass, and the perspective that we see today, that no, every generation is getting better. Every generation is getting better. So what does he say? The best of you were taken away, and every day, تَرْذُلُونَ, we are going further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our situation is becoming worse and worse and worse and worse. Question: if this is what he was saying in his day, and he's a tabi'i, he's one of the people who was with the Sahaba, and he's saying, man, we're getting bad. What about us is the question. وَسَمِعْتُهُ يَقُولُ, now look what he says. He says that's how it was in those days. That a person woke up in the morning, he wasn't greedy. See, what do we see about this man and the first man? What do we notice about him? It's complete selflessness, not selfishness. Today when we wake up, men today, we're thinking about me. My family, my son, my daughter, me and mines. That's all we're worried about the moment we wake up. But look at the selflessness of this individual who he's witnessing. Complete selflessness. He's waking up. Can you imagine the first thing you think about when you wake up in the morning is the poor people around you? What kind of society would that be? What kind of utopia would that be? Can you imagine? The first thing, someone's coming out their door and they're looking for who can I help? Where's the poor yatim kids? So what I wanted to point out is the complete, beyond generous. Generous isn't a word to explain what this first individual inculcates. It's complete selflessness. That it's not about me and mine. Now, let's learn the next lesson from this. How do you think this man's children will be? How do you think his children will be? If he's waking up every morning saying to the family, hey guys, the poor people. Hey guys, the poor people. How do you think his children will be? Yes. But when we wake up in the morning and it's all about me, us, don't worry about them. You're crazy? You're going to give him that money? No. I taught you better than that. I taught you how to handle money. Subhanallah. Now look what he says. Now he's saying what he sees today. Look what he says. It's very interesting what he says. He says, وَسَمِعْتُهُ يَقُولُ وَإِنْ شِئْتَ رَأَيْتَهُ. He says, now, today if you want, you could see. You know what you see today? فَاسِقًا, an open sinner. A fasiq is an open sinner. Someone who does sin and doesn't care who sees him. One person is a person who sees and who sins and is quiet about it. Very quietly he does what he does behind closed doors. The other person is who is an open sinner. Now, fisk is much worse in his Islamically speaking. Fisk, open sinning, is much worse than sinning quietly. Does anyone know why?
Not affecting society.
Exactly. That's the key point here. When you openly sin, you have a bad effect on the entire society. You bring the moral level of the complete society down. But when a person is very quiet about his sin and ashamed of it, keeps it quiet, this doesn't affect the neighbor. This doesn't affect the neighbor. And that's the worst part about what we see today, that all these sins have become open. And once they became open, they no longer became sins anymore, wrong. Now it's debatable whether it's wrong or right, because it's so open. So That's what the word fasiq means in Arabic. Fasiq is a person who openly sins. So he says, today you could see a fasiq, an open sinner, يَتَعَمَّقُ بِثَلَاثِينَ أَلْفًا إِلَى النَّارِ. He'll take $30,000 and take himself to hell for $30,000. يَتَعَمَّق. Completely going into using that money, doing what? Taking himself to the fire. What is he contrasting? He's showing the contrast between the man who used to wake up in his time and say, let's look after the poor, let's look after the poor. And the fasiq he sees today with $30,000, and he'll spend it, gamble it away. He'll spend it clubbing away, vacationing, private jet flight, so he could just have fun doing whatever he wants to do. And large sums of money wasting in sin that will take him to the fire of hell. مَا لَهُ, look what he says. مَا لَهُ قَاتَلَهُ اللَّهُ. What's wrong with him? May Allah destroy him. He says, what's wrong with this man? He has so much wealth, but he's using it to take himself to the fire of hell just because of his desires? Look what he says next. Same person he's talking about. بَاعَ خَلَاقَهُ مِنَ اللَّهِ. He bought or traded his portion from Allah بِثَمَنِ عَنْزٍ, for the price of a goat. What is it saying here? That Jannah, paradise, is ghali. Paradise is expensive, is beautiful, priceless. And this person is selling his paradise for what? For one goat. What does it mean, one goat? It could mean a few things. First and foremost, when you compare whatever pleasure he had in this dunya to what he's giving up in the hereafter, it's nothing. He bought a $30,000 goat. That's it. He sold his paradise for $30,000. That's it. The other thing we can learn from this is that most of the time when we are acquiring haram, it's so that we can fill this belly up. We can have food. And goats were a primary source of food at that time. Whether it be milk, whether it be meat. But he's selling himself out for a good meal, for food. He's selling himself out. The other meaning is just to show how cheap he is selling his paradise for. وَإِن شِئْتَ, and if you want, رَأَيْتَهُ, you'll see that person, مُذَيِّعًا مُرَبَّدًا فِي سَبِيلِ الشَّيْطَانِ. You'll see this person wasting everything. Murabbadan in Arabic means when someone spends all of their wealth in something haram, something forbidden and pointless. He says, you'll see this person wasting everything they have fi sabil shaitan, in the path of shaitan. In the path of shaitan. And if we look around us today, on what people spend thousands of dollars on, thousands of dollars. The youth know better than the elders. When you watch the so-called stars of today, what they spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on, fi sabil shaitan, in the path of shaitan. What is fi sabilillah? Fi sabilillah is when you look for the poor person, when you look for the person who just can't get their act together, and you help him out. When you look for the yatim, the baby that doesn't have anyone to take care of him. This is called fi sabilillah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. But fi sabil shaitan, we see it today. The youth know better than we do. We see people wasting thousands and thousands of dollars for pointless things. Now, look at the last part of this hadith. لا واعظ له من نفسه ولا من الناس. Hassan Basri says, poor guy. He has no one to give him. You know what wa'idh is? Wa'idh is a lecture. You know, someone that gives a sermon, a lecture. But what it means is someone that's going to tell you when you're doing something wrong. He says, poor guy. He doesn't have no one to tell him what he's doing wrong. No one else. وَلَا مِن نَفْسِهِ مِنَ النَّاسِ لَا مِن نَفْسِهِ وَلَا مِنَ النَّاسِ. There's two things that will correct us when we make mistakes. Only two things. When we're doing wrong, there's only two things that can correct us. Either you have something called nafs al-lawwama. Nafs al-lawwama in Arabic, okay, there's three types of nafs. There's three types of nafs. Number one, nafs al-mutma'inna. Mutma'inna. Nafs mutma'inna. Nafs mutma'inna is that self, that soul, that heart, which only encourages a person to do good. This is a pure soul, a pure heart. Nafs mutma'inna. Number two, nafs al-lawwama. Nafs al-lawwama is that heart, that soul, that constantly tells you, man, you shouldn't have did that. Astaghfirullah, you shouldn't have did that. Astaghfirullah, you shouldn't have did that. That was wrong. It constantly tells you, man, I shouldn't have did that. Oh, I shouldn't have did that. Lawam. Lama yalumu, to find blame. Lama yalumu means to find blame in something. So this nafs, it finds blame in its own actions. This is the second one. This is a conscious that constantly corrects itself. The third one is called ammara, nafs al-ammara bis-su. Inna an-nafsa la-ammaratun bis-su. Nafs ammara is the nafs that only incites to evil. You know, some guys, you know, they only talk about doing wrong. Whenever you talk to them, it's just, I knew people back in the old days. That only thing they can even conceive is demented things, wrong things, bad things, way to get over on people. We notice this, right? So these are the four types of nafs, brothers and sisters. This is very important. You know why? Because normally when we start off, when we're little, we have mutma'inna. We're the first category. And then as we get older, we get lawama. But if we ignore the lawama, if we ignore the second stage, we end up in the third stage. This is how it goes. So, look what Hassan Basri says. Absolutely amazing what he says. He says that this person doesn't have anyone to give him counsel, anyone to correct his wrong, not from within himself. That teaches us that we should have something inside of us whenever we do wrong. You miss a prayer. You look at something haram you shouldn't look at. You have greed for something. That you should have something in your heart that tells you, I shouldn't have did that. I shouldn't have did that. That's the best thing. But you know what? Sometimes you don't have that. Or sometimes we slip up. So you know what you need? You need a friend. You need a friend who you could turn to and who's going to say, bro, you missed Fajr today. Yo, brother, I haven't seen you in Isha for so long. Is everything okay? You need a friend. You need someone that's going to bring you back to the straight path. You know, Umar radiallahu ta'ala, he used to say, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillahi alladhi faddalani bi ashabin yaruduni ila al-haq idha akhta'u. He used to say, Alhamdulillah, all praise to Allah who has given me such companions around me that will bring me back to the truth when I slip up. This is a friend. The friend isn't the one. There's a saying in Urdu. Dushman, I'll just say it in Urdu and then translate it. Dushman ko hasata hai. Or dost ko rolata hai. Sorry, my Urdu is kind of whack. So dushman ko hasata hai. Your enemy makes you laugh. Dost, but your friend will make you cry. You know, you have something right here, or right here, something on your lip. So your enemy, he's not going to say anything. He's going to let you walk around the whole campus right next to you. This guy's making me look good right now. But your friend, he's going to say, yo, make you cry. He'll tell you you're slipping up. Look what Hassan Basri's saying here. He's saying, poor guy. He doesn't have his own conscience to correct himself, and he doesn't have anyone from the people to correct him. He's done. You know what else we learned from this? This guy's a rich guy, right? This second guy is a rich guy. Many times people get scared to correct the rich people. Many times people get scared to correct the rich people. Why? Brother, don't say anything. He donates a lot. Leave this brother alone. Get off of his case. This brother donates, mashallah. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kunu qawwamina bil qisti shuhada'a lillah walau ala anfusikum awil walidaini wal aqrabin in yakun ghaniyan aw faqira. Allah says, O you who believe, stand up for truth. Stand up for truth. Walau ala anfusikum. Even if it's against your own self. Tell the truth. Even when it's proving you wrong. Awil walidain wal aqrabin. Even if it's proving your father wrong. Or your family wrong. And then Allah says, In yakun ghaniyan aw faqira. Even if they're rich or poor. Because when they're rich, the Mufassirin, Imam Qurtubi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says when they're rich, people get scared. Don't say anything. I might need help one day. I might need a little help. Don't say anything to him. I don't want to make him upset. And then Imam Qurtubi says, why the poor person? Why does Allah say, even speak truth against the poor people? Because sometimes we say, oh man, the poor guy. He's poor. Just leave him alone. Don't tell him anything. Just leave him alone. So no, Allah says, speak truth, whether the person be rich or poor. So this is a very, very interesting statement and observation. A very important, interesting statement and observation from Hassan Basri. Again, let's just recap this hadith one time and we'll go to the next hadith. He says, there was a time, I remember a time, when a man would wake up in the morning and the first thing he would be saying to his family is, look after the orphan, look after the orphan. O family, look after the poor, look after the poor. O family, look after our neighbor, look after your neighbor. Then he says, then the best of us were taken away. And every day now we're getting worse and worse and worse. And then he says, إِذَا شِئْتَ, if you wish, you can see today, فَاسِقًا, an open sinner, يَتَعَمَّقُ بِثَلَاثِينَ أَلْفًا إِلَى النَّارِ. This person spends 30,000, open sinner spending 30,000 taking himself to hell. مَا لَهُ, what's wrong with him? May Allah destroy him. بَاعَ خَلَاقَهُ, he sold his portion from Allah. He bought his portion of paradise from Allah for the price of a goat. وَإِنْ شِئْتَ, and if you wish, رَأَيْتَهُ مُضَيِّعًا مُرَبَّدًا فِي سَبِيلِ الشَّيْطَانِ, and if you wish, you'll see this person wasting wealth, wasting money in the path of shaitan, not in the path of Allah. لَا وَاعِظَ لَهُ مِن نَفْسِهِ, he doesn't have a conscience that will correct himself. He doesn't have a conscience that will tell him, what are you doing? That's wrong. وَلَا مِنَ النَّاسِ, and he has no true friends no true friends that will tell him what he doesn't want to hear and will correct him. So this is full of beautiful nasiha for us. Amazing nasiha and advice for us. Subhanallah. That's all I can say about that. Let's go on to the next one, inshallah ta'ala. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. حدثنا موسى قال حدثنا سلام بن أبي مطيع عن أسماء بن عبيد قال قلت لابن سيرين عندي يتيم قال اصنع به ما تصنع بولدك واضربه ما تضرب ولدك. Asma bin Ubaid, he says that once I said to Ibn Sirin, one of the great Sahabi, later Sahabi in the time of the Tabi'een, Ibn Sirin, he was known for translating dreams. Ibn Sirin was known for his translation of dreams. So this Asma, brother, he says to Ibn Sirin, I have an orphan in my care. There's an orphan that I'm taking care of. So Ibn Sirin now gives him advice. He says, be careful. Isna' bihi ma tasna' biwaladik. Treat him the same way you treat your own son. Idribhu, and hit him ma tadribu waladaka, the way you hit your own son. In this athar, in this we see the concept of punishing the children, hitting children. And after 2 hadith, this topic will come back. So we're going to leave this hadith now, go to the next one. And then in hadith 142, we're going to discuss this topic of hitting the children. So for right now, let's go to chapter 78, which is the next one. Babu fadl al-mar'a idha tasbirat ala waladiha wa lam tatazawwaj. The chapter regarding the excellence of that woman who has patience looking after her son and she does not get the chance to remarry. This is amazing chapter, and it gives us a perspective of today's society that we live in. Look closely and look what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is teaching us in this hadith. عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أنا وامرأة صفعاء الخدين امرأة آمت من زوجها فصبرت على ولدها كهاتين في الجنة. I'll translate the hadith and then we'll explain it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, me and the woman who is Saf'a'ul Khaddain. Khad is your cheek. Saf'a is a color. Saf'a is when blackness mixes with any color. Yellow, red, different colors. So Rasulullah ﷺ says, I am with that woman whose cheeks are dull, lost their brightness, let's say. And then he explains, who's this woman? Imra'atun, the woman whose husband passed away. And then she has patience looking after her son. Me and this woman, look what Rasulullah ﷺ says. Me and this woman, kahatain fil jannah. We will be in Jannah like these 2 fingers. We will be in Jannah like these 2 fingers. Interesting is that Rasulullah ﷺ used the word Saf'a'ul Khaddain. I explained what Saf'a means. Does everyone understand what that word means? When any color mixes with black and gets a dull look to it. That's what that color means. Khaddain means cheeks. Where does all the makeup go? A lot of times. Right? Where does the makeup go? Sometimes you see like the cheeks are very rosy. A lot of the makeup goes on the cheeks and makes them nice and rosy. The sisters put a lot of makeup on their cheeks. And Makeup is her giving attention to her own self, correct? Beautifying herself, whether it be for her husband or because she's intending to get married, or whoever it may be for, but this is beautifying of her own self. But what happens when a woman has the sole responsibility of taking care of the little child? What happens then? Brothers, I could not speak about this until recently, but the effort and the struggle to take care of one child who wakes up in the middle of the night crying. The father wakes up, he can't do anything. He doesn't have what the baby wants. He wakes up and says, I wish I could help you, but I don't have what it takes. The effort that she has to put, the time that it takes. See, subhanallah, we learned that one of the names for the womb is raham, which comes from the word rahma, right? Rahma. And what does the womb do from the moment of conception? It provides food and sustenance to this seed of nothing, this seed that could fit on the tip of a ballpoint pen. It gives nourishment to it, and it grows and it grows. And this womb gives everything it has to this baby. It's complete and utter, again, selflessness. This womb gives everything it has to this child. Everything. And then when the baby comes, the effort that it takes to look after this child, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing, the love that Allah puts in the mother's heart. And what does Rasulullah ﷺ say that this love does? It makes her forget her own beauty. Rasulullah ﷺ says her cheeks are dull now. Why are they dull though? He says why. Not because she doesn't want to get beautified and worry about herself. No, because she wants to take care of this child and make sure this child has everything that he or she needs. But you know what's interesting, brothers? This is not only for the women. Do you know why Rasulullah ﷺ is saying that me and this woman will be in Jannah together? You know why? Because there was a year when Rasulullah ﷺ's blessed wife Khadija passed away and left him with how many girls? How many girls? 4. Rasulullah ﷺ was a single parent with 4 girls to raise. 4 girls to raise. Rasulullah ﷺ by himself. Not only that, he had Zayd with him. Who was Zayd? Remember? The slave that he used to call his son? He had him with him. Who else did he have with him? Ali. Radiyallahu ta'ala and karramallahu wajah. He had Ali. He has 6 children in his house. And he's the Prophet of Allah. He has the job of spreading hidayah to the entire mankind with 6 children in the house. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Can you imagine? We can't. Because we say, I'm busy. I'm very busy. I have to run my business. I can't take care of the children. Rasulullah ﷺ had a bigger responsibility and 6 heads in his house. 6 mouths to feed. So now Rasulullah ﷺ is saying, you know that woman that gives up her beauty to take care of that child? We're going to be together in Jannah like this. Because I know what she went through. I went through it too, Rasulullah ﷺ is telling us. I felt it too. So what does this tell us? Rasulullah ﷺ is teaching society the status of a single parent. Which religion tells you the status of a single parent? If someone asked you before today, what does your religion say about single parents? But look what Rasulullah ﷺ is saying. You know all those single mothers? Don't be worried. I'm going to be with you in paradise. Isn't this amazing? When it hit me that, whoa, Rasulullah ﷺ is talking about single parents here. Rasulullah ﷺ was a single parent. This is not restricted for only the women. This is for us brothers too. That if we're single parents, Rasulullah ﷺ is saying, and you have patience taking care of this child, see you in Jannah. We'll be like this together. See you in paradise. Absolutely amazing teachings of Rasulullah ﷺ. The other thing we can see now, we can contrast and look at the society today, which one of the reasons why we have a problem in society today, that the elderly and the very young, there's no regard for them. They are a burden on society. Because why? They stop my ownness. They stop me from living. They stop me from having fun. So now because my old parents are in my house, I have no freedom. I can't just go on vacation. I have my mother with me. They're a burden on me being me. And now, oh sister, if you have too many children, you won't have, you can't live anymore. Back again to the topic of selflessness. Rasulullah ﷺ's teachings, and a true society should have people that are not just worried about me. But no, we worry about the other people besides us. Whether they be young or whether they be old. We worry about them. So this, subhanAllah,
when you do this, it's like jihad, and it's, you will not see, sometimes you will not see the reward right away, and you say, this is too much. But in Allah,
subhanAllah,
so you will get a reward.
Jazakallah khair. This exactly the beautiful point the brother made is you don't see the reward sometimes, many times, you don't see it. But subhanAllah, when you see how a woman takes care of this baby, the love that Allah puts in their heart, that they don't care about themselves anymore, it's just this, we have to take care of. There's one more problem I wanted to touch with this hadith, is in order that we may live and keep our youth and keep our lives, we have outsourced the education and upbringing of our children. What do I mean by outsourced it? You hired someone else to do it. You don't want to do it. He's 6 years old. I send him to school. Whew. I'm done. Public school got me covered. Do you think the public school is really fulfilling the responsibility that Allah gave you as a loving father? I'll put it in an easier way to understand. Will you give your car to a mechanic you don't know? Will you give your car to a mechanic you don't know? So why do you give your most prized possession, your children, to people and teachers 8 hours a day you don't know? Because the government says they're qualified? Don't be so foolish. Don't be so foolish. You won't give your car to a mechanic you don't know, but you'll give your children to teachers you don't know? For 12 years? Wow. We have outsourced the responsibility of raising the child. The child is my responsibility to educate, my responsibility to raise, my responsibility to give morals and etiquettes. They're not going to do that for you. By law, they can't teach them morals or godly morals. Let's say it that way. So what is this hadith indicating more? that becoming a parent requires you to give up something so that you can pass it on to the next generation and make society a better place by creating and nurturing a good person and contributing that person to society. But now we look at if someone stays home to raise their son, if the father says, okay, I'm not going to work, honey, you work, your job, you make more money than me anyway, I'm going to stay at home and raise the kids. How does society look at him? How does society look at him? And in our minds, we kind of think, yeah, what's he doing? No, we need to get back to basics. We need to raise our children. We need to teach them. But of course, you won't hear this because every child, I think it's $7,000 they get for each child. Public school, $7,000. They don't want you homeschooling. They don't want you homeschooling. It's a long topic. We won't get into the public school system because then it's a long topic. There's a few books I can recommend people reading if they want to discuss and understand the public school system and what's being taught there. And another thing, brothers and sisters, each and every, who has more than one child? Everyone, right? More than one child. How many of your children are exactly the same? None. So how in the world are you going to make an educational system which is the same for every child, when every child is a little different from the next one? So when he doesn't sit still in the class, you say he has ADD. And when he's not good in math, you say he's special. Put him in a special class. Maybe he's not going to be a mathematician, but he's a master with his hands. He wants to be a craftsman. Do you understand what I'm saying? We're giving them a blanket educational system, and when they don't fit in, we're saying, oh, he's gifted and talented. From now, for the next 12 years, he's gifted and talented. This student, because he didn't learn how to read until the age of 7, and you're supposed to learn when you're at the age of 5, he's slow. Who said every child learns to read at the same age? What I'm trying to, I don't mean to digress and get to the educational system, but it's something I find very interesting, and I wanted to share with you, brothers, that a lot of times our children come home and frustrated. Why do I have to take this exam? I don't want to be a biologist. And you're going to beat them up and say, no, you have to do it. Why do I have to do it? I don't know, because they told me you have to do it. Right? Right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Brothers, there is no one system for every child is unique. Every child has its own speciality. You have to find what your child loves and let him run in that field. I'm going to stop here, because if I keep going, then, yes, sister. The books are the books, write this name down. John Taylor Gatto. John Taylor Gatto. Buy every book he wrote. John Taylor Gatto, Gatto. Buy every book he wrote. And you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. He was the number one, he was given an award in the year 2000, the number one teacher in New York City. The year he was given this award, he resigned. And he wrote a long article why he resigned and what's up with the educational system that our children are forced to go to. Take these exams. You have to take this exam. Why? You have to. Ask your English teacher what they got on this exam. They don't know. But it will determine your success if you do good on this exam. I'm sorry, brothers and sisters. I don't mean to digress like that. I like to stay on the topic. But it's a very important topic, the educational system. For those who really care, you can homeschool your children. You can homeschool. It takes time. It takes effort. It's not easy. But look at the words. It's jihad, as the brother just told us. It's a struggle.
I homeschool. My son is homeschooled, and within 1 year, you can make them pass 2 grades if you make them follow. and learn the Quran at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Testimonial. We got a testimonial here. For the sisters, the brother said he homeschools his son, and the son does 1 grade in 2 years, and 2 grades in 1 year, and he has time to memorize the Quran.
Either way is fine.
Either way, it's fine. Where in the educational system, if he's a little slow, you know, sometimes your kid could be really fast somewhere, but kind of slow in this thing. Well, when he gets slow, they stamp him. He's special. For the next 8 years, he's special now.
And medicate them. They medicate them.
Oh, subhanallah, brothers and sisters. Your child will be told attention deficit disorder. Their children, they like to run. They like to move. You sit them down for 6 hours, I think they will fidget a little, right? So you lock them up for 8 hours and then you drug him up because he doesn't like sitting for 8 hours? SubhanAllah. Let's give that to the hadith, inshallah. If anyone really cares, please buy those books. Please buy those books. The next hadith, the next chapter. The next chapter is Babu ADAB-UL-Yatim. The chapter about teaching etiquette to the orphan. Now, I want to explain something here very quickly. Let's do this hadith. This is an interesting hadith. It's kind of funny. Sayyidina Shumaysa al-Atakiyya قالت ذكر أدب اليتيم عند عائشة. So, some of the sisters are sitting around, okay? Aisha's there, radiyallahu anha. And other sisters are sitting around. So they started talking about taking care of, the orphan kids. Taking care of the orphan kids. This is all the sisters talking. So Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala anha says, قالت إني لأضرب اليتيم حتى ينبسط. She says, I'll spank, let's use the word spank. I'll spank the orphan that I'm looking after until he's laying out flat. That's what she says. Okay? What is she saying? First and foremost, you have to understand who were the yatim she was looking after. Her brother's children were the yatim that she was looking after. So her love for these children were like her own children. And what she's saying now, let's combine that with Hadith 140. Remember we skipped 140? Ibn Sirin says, hit the yatim, spank the yatim the way you would spank your own son. Don't do any more. The way you would spank your own son, spank the orphan you're looking after. There's an Arabic saying, الضرب للصبيان كالماء للبستان. There's an Arabic saying that the stick for the boy is like water for the garden. The stick for the child. The kids were happy with me like 5 minutes ago. The kids were very happy. They're like, we don't got to go to school anymore. And now they're like, brother, you're teaching them to beat us now. Alhamdulillah, we don't have too many kids today, only him. Alhamdulillah. So what is Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha? She's saying, don't get too laxed in taking care of your children. Sometimes we have so much love for them, we don't touch them. And we never correct and rectify the wrong that they do. So it's a necessity that sometimes you have to be strict to rectify wrongs. If you're not strict, then the person will keep getting wrong, and because you never rectified it. I would like to read something when it comes to the effects of being too harsh. This is a book called The Muqaddama by Ibn Khaldun. By Ibn Khaldun, it's the Muqaddama. And in this book, he's one of the greatest social scientists of the Islamic Ummah. In the world. He was in Andalus, in Spain. And the books he wrote, amazing till today if you study them. Amazing psychology. So I just wanted to read a part of the chapter that he speaks about the effect of being too strict on your children. Too strict. So we're going to read this inshallah. Okay, we're going to read this. This is very interesting. He says, الفصل الثاني والثلاثون في أن الشدة على المتعلمين مضرة بهم. He says that this next chapter is the chapter saying that if you're too hard on those that you're teaching, it will harm them. It will be detrimental to them. Look what he says. وذلك أن إرهاف الحد بالتعليم مضر بالمتعلم سيما في أصاغر الولد. He says, if you're too strict when you're teaching your children, this will be very harmful for their learning, for their education, especially at a young age. When they're very little, he said, don't be too strict when they're very little. And he's going to explain why. لأنه من سوء الملكة ومن كان مربا بالعسف والقهر من المتعلمين أو ممالكة أو الخدم سطى بهم القهر وضيق عن النفس بانبساطها. He says that the reason is if the person taking care or training the child, murabbi was the person who used to have the job of teaching etiquette to the children back in that time, murabbi. He says if the murabbi is very harsh and strict, then this will have a negative effect on the child because the temperament of the child will become qahr, very harsh. وَضَيَّقَ عَنِ النَّفْسِ بِإِنْبِسَاطِهَا. And he won't want to open up. The child won't want to open up. And then وَذَهَبَ بِنَشَاطِهَا. And all of his nishat, his zeal, and what's the word for nishat? His enthusiasm, thank you. His enthusiasm will go. And you'll notice when the teacher is very strict, you'll see what he's saying. It's وَدَعَاهُ إِلَى الْكَسَلِ. And then he becomes very lazy. Very lazy. He doesn't want to do anything. وَحَمَلَ عَلَى الْكَذِبِ وَالْخُبُثِ. And then he starts to lie. Why does he start to lie? وهو تظاهر بغير ما في ضميره خوفا من انبساط اليد بالقهر. He starts to lie because he's only scared of getting hit. Did you do your homework? Yeah, I did it. He's lying. Why? Because now he's scared of, you've been so strict on him that he learns that I have to lie to protect myself. I have to lie to protect myself. So he learns lying. It's a natural reaction. Then what does he say? وَالْخَدِيعَ. He learned, yes. وَعَلَّمَهُ الْمَكْرَ وَالْخَدِيعَ. He learns to be deceitful and trickery. A lot of the kids in school, they'll lie straight to the teacher's face. They were treated so harshly that they learned that, no, I have to defend myself, and the only way is to lie. My dog ate my homework, all that stuff. All that stuff. I'm sorry. لِذَلِكَ وَصَارَتْ لَهُ هَذَا عَادَةً. And you know what happens after he starts lying? It becomes a habit. It becomes a habit. وَخُلُقًا. And part of his character. وَفَسَدَتْ مَعَانِيَ الْإِنسَانِ إنسانية التي له في من حيث الاجتماع والتمدن وهي الحمية والمدافع عن النفس. He says here something interesting. Once that becomes his own characteristic, that he likes to lie and deceit, he loses that which made him human. He loses that compassion that made him insaniya. He loses that now. Now he's just deceitful. He just wants to trick to get around getting in trouble. Then he says, بل وكسلت النفس من اكتساب الفضائل. And now he gets lazy. He doesn't want to better himself at all in society. He just wants to. And what does he say next? وَدَعَا إِلَى أَسْفَلِ السَّافِلِينَ. Then he says, I'm sorry, I lost it. وَانْقَبَضَتْ عَنْ غَايَتِهَا وَمَدَى إِنسَانِيَتَهَا فَارْتَكَسَ وَعَادَ فِي أَسْفَلِ السَّافِلِينَ, that now instead of learning, because he was treated so strictly, he now rebels against the system. I don't want to learn anything. And you'll see this in the school, in the class. The kids, they'll say openly, I don't care. You won't get better, I don't care. They're rebelling against it. They don't want to hear it anymore because of that harshness that was placed on them. And then he says something beautiful. Listen to this. He says, وَأَعْلَمْ وَمِنْ أَحْسَنِ مَذَاهِبِ التَّعْلِيمِ, and one of the best ways to train and educate your children, مَا تَقَدَّمَ بِهِ الرَّشِيدُ لِمُعَلِّمِ وَلَدِهِ مُحَمَّدَ الْأَمِينِ. Harun Rashid was one of the rulers in the past. Harun Rashid. He sent his son, Muhammad Amin, to one of the murabbis. The murabbi are those people that used to teach etiquettes to the children. But when he sent him, he gave some advice to the teacher. This is the advice. I just want to read this advice and we'll stop with this. It's beautiful. He says, Ya Ahmad, the teacher's name was Ahmad. Ya Ahmad, O Ahmad, Inna Amir al-Mu'mineen qad dafa ilayhi mahjata nafsihi wa thamarata qalbihi. He says, O Ahmad, know that the leader, the governor has just given you his most prized possession and the flower of his heart. فَسَيِّرْ يَدَكَ عَلَيْهِ مَبْسُوطَةً. Let your hand be gentle on him. وَطَاعَتَهُ لَكَ وَاجِبَةً. And then his obedience to you will be compulsory. He's saying when you're gentle, he'll obey you naturally. When you're loving and gentle, he'll obey you naturally. وَكُنْ لَهُ بِحَيْثُ وَضَعَكَ أَمِيرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَقْرِئْهُ الْقُرْآنِ. Teach him the Quran. وَعَرِّفْهُ الْأَخْبَارِ. Teach him the stories. We have to teach our children stories. Do you remember Mother Goose? There was a time when our parents used to read us stories. Mother Goose? No? No one remembers Mother Goose? You remember Mother Goose, right? You remember Mother Goose? Okay, alhamdulillah, it's not gone yet. Brother, you know Mother Goose? There it is, gone. The young boy never heard of Mother Goose. Mother Goose is a tale that you teach children not to be greedy. Remember the goose used to give a golden egg? Oh yeah, now you remember. Right? Is that Mother Goose? That's Mother Goose, right? That's one of the stories. The point here, he's saying, teach your children stories. Teach them stories that have lessons in them. This is how we learn, through these stories. Then he says, and teach him poetry. Teach your children poetry. You know why? When you teach them poetry, they learn how to speak. They learn the language. You have to teach poetry to your children. وَعَلِّمْهُ السُّنَنِ. Teach him the sunnah. Teach him the sunnah. وَبَصِّرْهُ بِمَوَاقِعِ الْكَلَامِ. And teach him when to speak. مَوَاقِعِ الْكَلَامِ. When should he speak? وَامْنَعَهُ مِنَ الضَّحْكِ إِلَّا فِي أَوْقَاتِهِ. And stop him from laughter, except sometimes. You know, some children, they don't know when and where to do what. There's nothing wrong with laughing and running, not in the masjid. There's nothing wrong with certain things, not at school. So you have to teach them when and where to do what.
Excess of laughter kills the heart.
إِنَّ كَثْرَةَ الذِّكْرِ يُمِيتُ الْقَلْبِ. And teach them that extreme laughter takes away the light of the heart, as the hadith says. وَخُذْ بِتَعْذِيمِ مَشَايِخ بَنِي هَاشِمٍ. And take him to the scholars. Take him to the scholars. When your children see you sitting around scholars, in their heart grows the honor for the scholars. Who you honor, they will honor. So he says, take him around the scholars. And then he says, it says, تُفِيدُهُ إِيَّاهَا مِنْ غَيْرِ أَنْ يَحْزُنَهُ. Here it is. وَلَا تَمُرَّنَّ بِكَ سَاعَةٌ. Don't let any moment pass. إِلَّا وَأَنْتَ مُغْتَمًا فَائِدَةً تُفِيدُهُ إِيَّاهَا مِنْ غَيْرِ أَنْ يُحْزَنَهُ فَيُمِيتُ ذَهَنَهُ. He says, every opportunity you get, teach him some little wisdom. Teach him some wisdom. Whenever you're with him, make sure he gets some benefit. He sees something. Look at this thing. What does this thing mean? Always keep him thinking. And he says, if you don't do that, فَتَمِيتُ ذَهْنَهُ. His brain will die. You know how some kids, they lose their curiosity? It's gone. You killed it. They said, why? Why? You know, why? The sky is blue. Why? Why? It keeps going. After a while, we say, just be quiet. Right? He says, don't let that curiosity die, but rather keep encouraging that curiosity. And then he says, وَلَا تُمْعِنْ فِي مَسَامَحَتِهِ. Don't tum'in, when you look closely at something, don't look so closely at his mistakes. Don't scrutinize his Jazakallah khair. Don't scrutinize his mistakes. But rather, sometimes you have to act like you didn't see it. You know that Anas was with the Prophet ﷺ for 10 years, and the Prophet ﷺ never said to him, why'd you do that? Or why didn't you do that? Do you think the Prophet ﷺ never saw him doing something wrong? No, he overlooked it. He overlooked it. So he's saying, overlook when they make mistakes. Some parents, every little mistake, why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that? No, he's saying you have to overlook some things. Overlook. And he says, if you do not keep him intellectually motivated, فَيَسْتَحْلِيَ الْفَرَاغ. You know what yastahliya? It comes from hul. He will begin to like farag. You know what farag? Chilling. You know time when you're doing nothing. He'll begin to like when the mind is not engaged. Some people, we get so lazy that when we are intellectually engaged, it's too much for us. What he's teaching him is, from the beginning, teach his mind to be intellectually engaged constantly. It's amazing advice. وَقَوِّمْهُ. Now, we are connecting this to the hitting, right? Look at the last thing he says. وَقَوِّمْهُ مَسْتَطَعْتَ بِالْقُرْبِ وَالْمُلَايَنَةِ. And make him strong by, as much as you can, by keeping him close and being gentle. فَإِنْ أَبَاهُمَا. But if he rejects these two things, the softness and the closeness, فَعَلَيْكَ بِالشِّدَّةِ وَالْغِلَظَةِ. So then you got to use the stick. If he doesn't take the closeness and the softness, then you have to be strict on him, he said. But this is beautiful advice that Ibn Khaldun gives in his Muqaddimah. Al-Muqaddimah Ibn Khaldun. Those who are interested in social sciences, this is available in English too. It's a masterpiece, something we should have, and our children could read it too. And inshallah we'll stop here, because Hadith 80 describes if someone has a child and in its youth the child passes away. Rasulullah ﷺ discusses that, and we'll discuss that bi'idhnillah next week. I won't be here. I'll be out of town. So next Friday we won't have halaqah. Unacceptable. Saturday, no. Next week. That's 2 weeks. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu. We have 10 minutes if there's any questions or comments.
When you say,
Go ahead.
a single mother, can you categorize single believing mother?
Yeah, obviously this refers to a Muslim. You can't enter paradise except with iman, faith.
There are too many single mother over here.
So on. Yeah, I know, but it's referring to Assalamu alaikum, brother. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Can you go over the 4 types of nafs again?
Okay, the 3 types of nafs. The brother said, can we go over the 3 types of nafs again? Number 1 is mutma'inna. It is that nafs that always encourages a person to do good. The second type of nafs is lawama. It's the nafs that constantly tells you to do, it reproaches you. It corrects you when you do wrong. It constantly corrects you, blames you. Lama yalumu. Lom means blame in Arabic. And the third type of nafs that we discussed is amara bisu. Is that nafs which is constantly telling you to do bad. Right?
Can you pronounce that third one again?
Ammara. Ammara. Any other questions, inshallah? We have a few minutes. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك